If you enjoy the content, don't forget, like, subscribe and click the notification bell. Welcome to another episode of Devongunsmith Diaries. What have we got today? Well, this is an English Civil War period reproduction reenactors doglock action. And a few rubbishy little flints. And one of the frequent things I get asked to do is to harden frizzens, and frequently that is all that's required. However, when you actually look at this lock, I can set the lock, cock the lock really easily. Something about this spring that's not quite right. And also, I don't know whether you can see that, there's a great big gap in the pan, which shouldn't be there because all the priming powder would just fall out. So I need to set the relationship between the pan and the frizzen. So whether or not the frizzen is a replacement one, sometimes rob pieces of pay pull to get the locks to work, get 1 out of 2 and 2 out of 1. But the set of that lock, that frizzen, is wrong. It's quite hard to forge that to adjust. It's possibly I might have to set the pan to sit down. They definitely don't match. Look, there's a big old gap there. And that's horrendous. That's just not acceptable. It looks like the frizzen's out of alignment there. But setting that is an awful. That's not the best scenario. This is a high carbon steel. So I'm going to have to, if I forge it, it's such an awkward thing to get to reset. It's almost like the set of the frizzen is wrong. Hard to see how that could be corrected. Some of it we could potentially just face off the pan, and I've done that successfully before. It's a bit of a worry, is what it is. Well, I may or may not be able to do that forging it on camera because that's quite a tricky episode. And you need to get the set into correct alignment while it's red hot, so it's really quite tricky to do. Well, we'll have to see what we can do. And also, the other question mark is, can we sort this really weak spring out without snapping my fingers? Right, look, shouldn't be able to do that. It's just too soft. Again, sometimes a bit of amateur gunsmithing gets done. A little bit of over enthusiastic. Yeah, that shouldn't fall out. Right, I'll find you an example, which I did have here. This is a similar size spring with the correct kind of set. Now, the price is set on the job, so what I've got to do here is forge this so that it has the correct angle of set like this one has. There's quite a bit of difference there, as you can see. And then harden, and then temper, and hope there's not been a weld in here using some kind of soft mild steel rod or something, because that will be a problem. We will get into this and see what happens. Also, the frizzen spring seems to be, well, non-existent as well. So it's had a hard life. You can see the angle of that is not quite right. Let me see if I can show you. Doesn't look right, and I'm wondering how we're ever going to get that to straighten, or whether that casting was ever always off, because that is going to take some doing, and it could fracture across here if I start trying to twist that. In the hardening process, all they get is some cyanide case hardening. That's, you can see the marks on that. That's been struck, but not able to strike a spark because of this. Well, it should be like that. The set's all wrong. There's no strength in this spring whatsoever, so we will have to have a little look at that. So I'm just throwing it all together again. On this particular lock, the pan can be separated, and we want to see if there's any movement there in the pan that we can make use of. I'll set this down on the bench and zoom in for you. There you go. So I can show you more clearly what's going on. As you can see, there's quite a lot of play in the pan casting, and it's likely that could be brought up slightly to face up better. Not perfectly, but definitely better, to the point where I can actually face these off together with a file, maybe grinding them to set. Let's see what happens when I push that up hard and then close it off. It just comes flying open again. I could probably face off here to get the adjustment I need with some careful, judicious movements. So if I take metal off the bottom, put a slight angle there, that closes up quite nicely there, you see, but that doesn't. So there's one option there. I can take a little metal off this bottom edge to set that slightly like that to close that gap, and then possibly file the two to match. This is wear and tear, obviously. This is a casting. I don't want to be forging that. I certainly don't. And the frizzen, I don't really want to mess with the geometry on that. So it's the relationship between these two parts that's critical here. So I'll crack on and do that, because that would save me a lot of time if I'm able to face it off. That'll be off camera because I need to set it. It clearly isn't flat because there's two sides to this. It's not cleaning up very well. I don't know whether you can see, there's a distinct bump there, but I know this is the right thing to do to get some angle set there. Again, I'm not able to see too clearly. It's all fingers and thumbs, isn't it? So and you see it in real time as I do. Well, that's got a gap there, and that needs opening, or fold it, rocking back a bit there. What does that do? There's a slight improvement. Bearing in mind that I can adjust this almost infinitely to close on the pan. These are things musketeers should know. It's up to their musket commanders to teach them out in the training and in the maintenance of their. These are weapons, because in a wartime scenario, I sometimes get told off for calling shotguns smoothbore weapons. Weapons. Well, this is a smoothbore weapon. It just is. Okay, that cock is rather loose too. That's interesting. So obviously the cam needs a bit of tightening up. It's basically worn out. It must be 40 years old, this pattern. Still got quite a bit of cast over there. And also in the frizzen itself, I may have to do something here to adjust the set, both sides, just by a small amount of filing or grinding to get it to just adjust over. And a combination of these things, a few thou here and a few thou there, will pull it round. And it's essential to get that correct. Such fun. And this is a budget job, as they always are with the reenactors. They want everything for tuppence halfpenny, old money. You know, 1 English penny at the rate of the 1642 rate, not the English inflation rate of today. Right, so because there's a screw and I can adjust it, I will adjust some of the angles set here as well. I prefer to do them by grinding rather than forging. And this is what happened. Every lock was adjusted individually, so that creates an interesting scenario of itself. This could just be wear and tear. There's a very rounded off area here. It could just be needed grinding flat to probably set that better. And the wear and tear on the actual lock plate. There's too many variables, and it's just a matter of figuring out what's going to work best for this lock. As you can see, that is slightly closed more now, so I can get something out of that. Right, off camera for a moment. Okay, so I've given this a bit of a face up on the wheel. I've done it by eye, fatal, because I'm not going to know until you know. So I can be ridiculed on the World Wide Web for getting it wrong. Anyway, so I'm finding out as you find out. It's not rehearsed, this is real time. You've got to remember, I'm doing these jobs to earn a crust. So I've got to address the problems as I find them. Right. That looks improved. Okay, right. Ooh. I need to improve my light source. That's probably a little brighter for you. It's certainly much better for my poor eyesight. And I don't know if you can see it, but I can certainly see a big old gap there. Trying to get the angle there. There we go. There's some work needed doing in here, look. Because that angle there is a big old gap. And one of the things that people do is over tighten these. I think I know what it is. I think there's a shoulder on this screw, which is going to be an annoying thing to have to, yes. So they put literally no thread on them, so it's reaching the bottom of the shoulder. So now I've got to find what that thread is, hoping it's BSF or something like that. And I'm going to tap further down to close that off. See how one job gets another job, and before you know it. Now that's only a very small amount of linishing I've done, so possibly I missed that prior. So if I hold that myself in alignment, hard against the alignment, it's still got a bit of a gappy gap on it. but there's too many adjustments in relation to the frizzen and pan relationship. Theoretically, it should be closed up, but without pulling that tightly to the... That would almost be acceptable, you see? So if there's a little gap there, usually it's pressing against the barrel there, so there's usually a little bit of getaway, but you can see that's vastly improved if it was able to hold it there. And you wonder why I roll my eyes when people say, oh, can you do that for £5? It's like, no. I'm going to be here ages trying to get this straightened out. But they don't want to pay 2023 money. They want to pay 1642 money. And they don't want to pay it. They want the regiment to pay for it. Ah, the lament of an armourer. So this is the point of documenting the kind of work I do. Doing a thread check here. It's 3/16 Whitworth, not BSF. But when I put the Whitworth there, it doesn't want to engage. Not too happy to do that. So test the thread. It's going to be an awkward one, isn't it? A different TPI or a pitch. My horrible suspicion, but it's not BA, that's for sure. I'm going to send some of you in paroxysms of delight and reaching for your keyboard. That's my dehumidifier going off, by the way. It's got to keep the armoury a constant 40 to 60 humidity. Trying to get everything done. Don't forget, any damage that I do, I can straighten out after the event. Right, there is a clear movement there. I have to say, I'm never really much a fan of die tapping handles. They always seem to move at the wrong moment. But anyway, let's just see what we can do. Should I put cutting oil on, guys, or should I do it really Billy Bob Rough redneck style? Don't forget, I'm a bit of a tease when it... Oops, sorry guys. I'm having to work quite closely with my camera here. There you go. Right, I am going to put some lube on before you start screaming at the camera. 1600s, they would have probably used linseed. So a bit of historical archaeology here. Right, drop of linseed. I just have a very unauthentic plastic cap. There. Let's see if that makes a difference. Yeah, that's good. All right. Yeah, that feels a lot better. Maybe I should put it in the centre where it should be, like I would ball at an apprentice, because you don't get the clamping and ability. And adjust the camera to suit. There you go. Ugh. None of this is by any means perfect. I can feel I'm getting a cut there. Very carefully, because I don't want to strip this out. That's getting a cut. I can feel it. Ooh, and it starts to wobble. Yes. Right, now we're starting to hit that shoulder. And the next thing I need to do is measure whether it is 3/16 on the shoulder, or the two different dimensions. Because at present my lathes aren't working, so that's going to make up for an interesting situation. There's a sort of a pseudo clutch brake going on here, because I'm not tightening it up so much. It's so tight that it'll twist, mark up the head. Oh, it is cutting. Well, okay, perhaps we've got enough. Who knows? Otherwise, it might be time for a little washer as a cheat. Camera adjustment. Half of my problem is trying to get it stay in the view of the camera so that we can get this adjusted. I need a cameraman. I need employees to do this sort of stuff for me, don't I? That would be nice. Of course, I'd have to put the prices up then. Nobody wants that. Got no money for beer then in the beer tent at the reenactment festivals. Right, I know what I'm going to do. Possibly this is pushing off. I don't think so. Oh, I think my next customer's arrived. Now that's a good fit. And there's an improvement, but albeit slight. But when you see how that closes up there, in terms of that tightening up, it's slight, but it's better. So you can see that that's a tighter fit now. There's more screw going through now. That's a tighter fit, but you have to have that so it isn't impossibly tight. So see, if you see that now, I can close it up, but as soon as I tighten it, it opens the gap. So I need to now make that offset there clearer. There's a bit of a gap here. I was trying to get it to focus better. There you go. Slight gap here, but it's not, that needs to be removed there. Okie dokie. And screw later. Problem is, once you take the metal off, you can't stick it back on again. Still tightening up here. So it might be more expedient to get it to fit, file it to fit on the top of the pan. Yeah, it keeps opening up. It's less. It's becoming less. Still a gap there, so I think I need to take some metal off here, especially as well, maybe, I'm thinking aloud, guys. I need to get in there and take a bit metal off. It's unfortunate, but it's very much harder to put metal back on again, although I can. Have done. You end up having to make adjustments on the... Right, so I don't know if you can see this. In the casting, that comes around and then bulges out here. There's more here than there is there. I think you can see that. That angle is pretty good, but this is greater. I'm going to need to do that on the wheel, otherwise I'll be here forever. It's definitely improving. We are beginning to get there. I think you're getting the idea of just how tedious this can be, though. And the amount of time versus what the job's worth, certainly to the reenactors, because they want most of their money in the beer tent these days. They think these guns are worth only 50 pence. So we end up doing work for less than minimum wage, which is not a good business model. Not at all. Again, any vice marks will be polished out, so don't be... Well, you can stick what you like on the comments. It won't change the way I work, and I certainly don't care for your comments. The keyboard warrior seems to know everything. It's like, well, give me £1 million and I'll do it perfectly, of course. Right, initially, this is the problem. There's too much play there, look. That shouldn't really be like that, but that is the way it is, and that's the way I got it. So too tight, and it's clearing off. It's still catching down here. But the set is also down to the thread and the cut, so there's only so much you can do. It's physically capable of getting there. Really got that much play. It's not great. It will go there. It will achieve, but by which manner? And obviously the set of the thread on the screw is going to have an influence, clearly. The cheap and easy way would be to take that shoulder off, and it will come down again then when it comes on. But there is a cant there that needs adjusting this way, exaggerated. So I don't want to do too much filing, because once you take it off you can't put it back on again. And by implication you're making this powder well more shallow. I need a cup of tea, I think. And success. That comes down onto the face of the pan pretty much perfectly. There's always going to be a thou or two of gap, and I can take a tiny bit off here and off the shoulder here. A little more, just a tiny bit more. And it will be almost perfect, but it's way better than it was before. Okay, after a bit of messing about, that's lovely. That's certainly as good as you can expect to get. That doesn't concern me because the barrel's faced there, so it's held against the barrel there, and we've got all that gap there for the priming flash hole. So that's how that is faced up. It's square there. That's been threaded a bit more to accommodate. Quick check to see that the mainspring won't foul up against that extra length on the screw. No, it won't. That needs setting and forging. So we're well on the way. This is a little loose. Don't know if I can do anything about that. It's just the wear and tear. Well, I could possibly strike it up there, as you can see, bring a bit more metal. It's just a bit... it could do with a shim. There's a lot of play there, a lot of play. You're going to lose a lot of your striking power with all that play there. It's loose as a loose thing's loose bits. Wear and tear, 40 years of use in the sealed knot ECWS. Can you see the gap there? It's a lot of work yet to do. Right, trade secret. If you get a job like, if you get to your lock is floppy like this, a sacrificial part, a steel beer can, cut it with some scissors, cut it to shape, slide it in, make a shim washer, one or two of those to size. There's a pin there you need to knock through to clear, to peg that out, and then job's a good one. And that is what I'm going to do with some grease. That will stabilize all this flopping around here, look. I'm not seeking to make a new lock here. This is just a get you out of trouble situation. That all otherwise works fine. There's way too much play there, so that needs shimming. Probably shimming it underneath the face there where it can't be seen. Underneath the cock in there. And that'll give a nice flat face to stop it wobbling and tightening up. But you don't want it so tight it doesn't move, because then you won't snap the lock and get a good strike either. So frizzen pan, geometry fixed. Next job, the floppy cock. Yes, I did say that. Not intentionally, but it is what it is. That is called a cock. Sorry. Cancel me. Right, so got to sort out this slack cock. Right, I don't want to take the trigger sear off, not really. it's all just more work and you end up with looser parts, components. So let's just see if I can free this first. Felt a little movement there. Sounds good to me. Pin is extracting. Now, notably, I don't need to take it all the way through, as long as I can remove that. No, it's still holding it. Just need to just gently tap this through. Ambidextrous, got to be left-handed today. Still gripping. I don't want to drive that pin out completely. Not if I can help it. There you go. Don't need to take that apart anymore. Certainly don't be tempted to. Right, so quick shim. Right, I do use moly or lithium grease because it has a bit of metal in there. And it allows this to polish and rub against. So I'm going to make a couple of shims from a beer can, if I can find one. So, didn't have a beer can because I brew my own. I do it in bottles. But I went bin diving and one of my neighbours had a little can. Unfortunately, it's aluminium, which means it will wear out quicker than a steel shim. However, it will still work fine. Right, just need a hole punch or two. And a pair of scissors. Aluminium cans will work at a pinch. I've done this before. I'm cutting it off camera, sorry. That's what the noise you can hear is. There we go. So now we've got a perfectly thin piece of shimming material. Obviously don't want water near gun locks. So, got a hole punch here of roughly the diameter. Bearing in mind, I don't have a big area to make a washer. I could use a steel washer, but I'd end up having to grind it down to shape. So I go for the least nightmarish option generally. And in fairness, I can probably make, quite a few little shims. Because the actual circular area is only that. So, first things first, find the punch. You don't have to use a punch, I just happen to have one I like to use. There you go. More of the same. Okay. Don't worry about the fact it's all buckled up. It will straighten out in time. Don't worry about it one bit. Okay. Rough as you like. These are, after all, sacrificial items. And just quickly form them into shape. Don't have to worry too much, because if you cut them right, they won't be seen at all. This is a little reenactment hack. I've tightened up somebody's lock on the field, as I say, or prior to going on the field. Epic fail. It's not tight. It's not big enough. It's a tiny bit too small. Sometimes you've got to try a few things. Little pair of nail scissors just to open up and remove that burr. You know, you can use scissors on very fine beer can material. It's perfectly acceptable. And put a little nick in here. I'm sure that shank is a bit loose too. There you go, just swage that over without tearing it. Without tearing it, I said. We're nearly there. Got to maximise the amount of washers surface area that we can have. Because it will turn around, you see. So again, it's not perfect. Okay, so that's one hidden. So I don't want to sacrifice too much metal because I need every bit of surface area on that contact. Like I always do, keep the whole thing as much as possible on video. Very lightly ease that off now because it's quite delicate little shim. But it's certainly, well, I'll have to tell you. I'll tell you what it is. That's 18 thou, would you believe? So that's all we need. Alright, so sometimes people say to me, Paul, you've sent my gun back and it's filthy. Right, well that filthy stuff is black lithium moly grease. It's meant to be there. You silly Billy. And if you take it off or remove it, well people, certainly in reenactment world, because they're not typically shooters, tend to be thespians of the lovey variety. Quite often not that keen on guns politically. Right, so a healthy amount of grease. You can always wipe it off, of course. Right, holes, line up, fix. That already feels better. Okay, let's see if I can't get this to take a squeeze. Oh, look at that, like it grew there. And that already feels, with only 18 thou, already feels so much better. It's a little bit loose even now. How far would you go with these things? If you look, see the movement within the actual square case. No good deed goes unpunished. This wasn't intended as part of the job, by the way. But I know that when the complaint is it doesn't strike, all of these things come into factor. And I have actually had a weekend warrior say, oh, Paul, I'm going to report you to the musket inspectorate because the work's not of a sound quality, because this was loose. He didn't ask me to fix that, and I'm only there to do what the customer asks at the end of the day, because what the customer asks is what I get paid for. Somewhat like in the disclaimer at the end of this video. But we won't go there, will we? No. My bench is getting rapidly very cluttered. Okay, so we need a tiny bit more. So with that punch hole, I can just open up that size just a tiny bit. Put a little tiny nick to allow that to swage out a tiny bit. We don't want loads of excess metal here, guys and gals, because I know there's quite a few lady musketeers masquerading as the gentlemen who might want to fix their own musket themselves, and why not? I'm all for equal opportunities. So these flimsy little things can only make it better. And aluminium, in a way, is kind of the ideal, because it will grind itself up and create a little aluminium paste, which will further tighten up the whole proceedings. Very carefully push that down now, because otherwise it will split. We don't want that. Oh, this is rough. Need a flat screwdriver. And if you don't think this is not a time-honoured method, a lot of you people buy these Indian reproduction flintlocks and the like, and the Indians use beer cans a lot. I know that. So I found them when I fixed them, when they've been supposedly new. Right. I am going to make a shim for that box key, because I don't think that's going to work. And in my experience, you do 3 sides only. It's just, I know that, because I've done it before. Now, you're thinking, oh, how are you going to get that? How are you going to do that, Paul? Because that looks like a right mess now. Fancy a gunsmith doing such shoddy work. This is like guerrilla gunsmithing and little gun hacks. You can use brass shims, obviously, as well. Okay, still oversized. And we're going to need to put a little hole in this, aren't we? In case you hadn't noticed. So there's your additional shim, which I will offer up. Let's see if it's going on. It is going on. Look at that. So you said, how are you going to put that hole in? There you go. Watch. See if I can do it on camera. That would be epic. There you go. Now there'll be zero wiggle now. There, he's in. Okay, got to knock it out again, haven't I? Typical gunsmith's bench always gets cluttered by the end of the job with all the things you need to get it done. Alright, so clear the hole, little tappy stick, bash the camera, cotter pin flies out, disappears on the floor. That's pretty par for the course, to be fair. This is a good fit now, so it's going to take a bit of wiggling. Oh, I'm pleased with that. Love it when it comes together on camera. It's quite a rarity. Okay, so one shim with a retaining hole. Gotta love it, gotta love it. So the hardest part is to get the cotter pin to go back in again. Once it's been pulled out, gotta get it in just a tiny bit. Oh, these little parts have a habit of disappearing on the floor with monotonous regularity. Okay, so here we are again. Happy as can be. So, greased up parts. Liberal amount of grease on the lock. I need to get that sear back. I don't want to be pressing that out in a hurry. Ooh, it's painful. Okay. Check everything's in alignment. It is. Give that a little squeeze for control. Yeah, it's going on. Oh, it's so much tighter. Oh, doesn't help that that was in the way. There's still some slack because it's not completely home yet. Now it's starting to get there. Right, let me see if I can squeeze that off. Ooh, it's such a flipping fiddly enterprise, this. Fingers in the way as usual. Right. Yeah, mostly in. Get in there. I don't even know if it's on camera. Sorry, guys. Well, that feels way better now. It's not fully engaged. I just need to tap that home a minute. Her. All fingers and thumbs, guys. What's new? Can't get the vise in there. Can't squeeze it with these pliers because it's too flipping big. Or can I? Well, there you go. No good deed goes unpunished. That's in now. Roll pin in. Had to remove the sear. The trigger levers. This is the problem. When everybody wants everything for little or no money, that's a lot better. It's still got some play in it, but it's significantly better. It's definitely tighter on the two items too, so there's a small amount of play. It wasn't what I was instructed to do anyway, but I know that it would be a backlash of the situation. So, pop that back in where it belongs. There. And you won't believe I put that down like less than 30 seconds ago. But there we go. Right, okay, so to get this in, it's a sprung job. And it's probably going to bite me on the bum. once again. If I can get a pin to sit in there and hold it all together. So in the way of using a slave pin methodology, hold it all together. I just wanted to save time because this was one of those jobs that was very much constrained on price. It was asking a lot in the first place. And anything you can cut corners to save time has to be good until it's not. And that's just not aligning now. So, little pin, there you go. Pushed it out again. Darn it. Oh, there it is. And today I'm just not feeling the recording vibe. I'm just not in the headspace for it today. Just want to get on with the work that I've got to do, which is quite a bit. It's approaching the weekend, which is always the other thing. Right, I can possibly press that in place here like this without catastrophic failure. The problem is I've got a pin exactly the right size, so if I put something in a little bit small, it will just wiggle around. Of course, as soon as I take it off camera, it'll fly in. Sometimes working to a camera is like working with somebody looking over your shoulder. Doesn't get the best results, and I know a lot of workers don't even like to do that. There it is there. And returning to my messy bench. So, got that in, and it's all fixed in nicely. Roll pins doing what they're supposed to do. It's significantly better wobble wise. There's some play in it, you expect that. That's tighter there, it's tighter to the face. Okay, so one of those things, what they say, going off half cocked. This is a half cock lever stop. Half cock is here. Let me just clear that bench. Oh, it's awful, isn't it? Right. Half cock is here. As it comes into that sear there, it goes, see there? Goes click. That's half cock. It's not locked though, so the half cock lock can come back a tiny bit more here. And there you go. It's not fully engaged till it gets to here. Now that's at full lock. So that's the dimension that this spring that I can already push to by hand into. It's rubbish. I need to seriously see if I can't fix that. This floats about until it's fixed back in the lock, and these screws come undone, so I've staked the screw there with a punch. So although it's loose, which is what you want it to be, it won't come undone. So here we go again. Right, so there's retaining lug there. It would screw in there like that. And good, I was going to say, good luck with finding the screw. Hey. Right, this is the final job now, is to see if we can reset the spring. As it stands, as you can see, in cocking it, weirdly that feels a lot better. A lot of the slack is out of it. That does feel a lot better. Not supposed to, because I've not done anything to the spring itself. Doesn't look like it's necessarily the correct spring. Sometimes they get swapped out. Well, quite often they get swapped out, to be fair. I almost certainly know I shouldn't be doing this here, to be honest with you. I want to get this job done because there's a sense of urgency from the customer. I don't know. Things I get myself into. Before it cools too much, gotta pull it out. It's always a pain, this is right. Get a bit of a bend on it, there you go. Heat that through thoroughly, get it red hot, quench it in oil. That goes brittle, glass brittle then, and then temper it back. So I'm now about to heat treat it. Okay, so with much effing and jeffing to get that in, once it was set, it's clearly not the original spring, which is why it's been giving me so much flipping jip. Just a quick recap. This is a really lively spring now. Frizzen faced up, pan faced up, cock tightened with shims. That is a little like sort of reenactor's hack, that is. Spring re-tensioned and re-hardened. Boy, that was a job, because that wasn't the original spring, so that was a bit of a nightmare. However, it works now. And I believe you can see when it strikes quite nicely. Yeah, even in daylight you can see that. That's all, folks. Thank you.